Hey, good evening. So one thing I work with my clients on a lot is transition planning, and specifically, what I like to work with my clients on a lot is their 90-day plan. So oftentimes, my clients are in a period of transition. Either they are transitioning at a promotion at their current company, they're moving up the chain at their current location, their current career, or they've accepted a position at another firm and it might be a lateral move, but it might be an upward move. But either way, they're in some sort of transition. And in fewer cases, they maybe have been out of work for a little bit and they've finally landed a new job. And so they're transitioning into a new role entirely. And so, one of the most crucial aspects of starting a new role, regardless of the reason, whether it's internal promotion, a lateral move, or you've landed that new job after a period of unemployment or a period after you've taken a break, you have to have a 90-day plan. But rather than talk about that 90-day plan tonight, what I want to talk a little bit more about is specifically some of the traps that we can fall into when we're going through that transition period, and that those traps typically fall within the first 90 days, which is why the first 90 days is such a crucial part of that transition. That first 90 days to really set yourself up for success, you really need to spend some time developing a plan. But let's talk about some of the transition traps that people can fall into. So one of the most common ones, at least in my opinion, is you go into your new role and you just stick with what has been successful for you in the past. And that's something that's easy to do, right? Because you've been successful in your career. Everything that you've done to be successful has led up to this moment of transition, this moment of promotion, this moment of lateral move. And so it's easy to think to yourself, well, I'm just going to keep doing the same things that have gotten me to this point, that have led to my success. And it's a common way of thinking, but unfortunately, you can oftentimes not realize that the new role that you have is requiring you to learn new skills, to do new things in order to be successful in that role. And sometimes you have to embrace brand new competencies that you didn't have before. You can't always be relying on what you've done in the past to be successful. So that is trap number one. Trap number two is falling victim to what I would call Action Jackson, if you want to use an old movie reference, because that's my generation, Action Jackson. And that is a situation where you come into your new organization and you are just doing all sorts of things, everything you can think of. And I can tell you that I was victim to that in one of my stops in my career journey. I had accepted a new role as a CEO of a nonprofit economic development organization. And I was replacing the previous CEO who had been there for, I think, 15 years maybe. He'd been there for a long time, and for a nonprofit in economic development, that's a really long time. Um, in my opinion, things in the organization were very stale. Things had been done the old way of doing things for a long time, and I'd been hired primarily because of this action plan that I developed as part of the interview process. And so um, I come in, I took action right away on a number of things. I moved quickly. I went too hard, too early, without establishing more of a foundation in that role, right? So I took a lot of action. I wanted to put my own stamp on the organization right away because it had an old stamp on it. The person who I was replacing was very well thought of. He was retiring. He was very well thought of. They even had a day for him while I was still there, which was a whole other story. But I was too busy to learn. I was too busy to take a history lesson on the organization. I just was go, 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 action, 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 action. And honestly, it was that first 90-day period. I mean, I was very action oriented the whole time, but that first 90-day period when I was super action oriented, that probably resulted in the fact that I wasn't very successful in that role, and I ended up having to leave that job after only about a year. So again, you don't want to be focused solely on action because there's lots of other steps that you need to take in an organization to avoid some of those problems. Number three is that you set unrealistic expectations. like, and that can vary depending on the nature of the role and what you're looking to do, but you need to make sure that you have a full understanding of what you've been brought in there to do, and you have to make sure that you are setting yourself up for success by making sure that you aren't setting your expectations for what you can accomplish too high, that you're not setting expectations for the organization too high, because you might perform well, but you still might not be hitting the expectations that you've created. So you want to avoid that, because that can also lead to some major long-term failures down the road. Number 4, it's kind of similar to the Action Jackson one, but you're attempting to do too much, which my daughter likes to say a lot. You're doing too much, bruh. You're doing too much. So that's one thing. And so similar, you rush off in all directions. You launch all these different imperatives, all these different initiatives, trying to see which one's going to stick. And lots of times none of them end up sticking. Your people become confused. You lose credibility. You lose critical mass. And then people start to doubt your ability to do the job. And so you want to make sure that you're not focused on doing just too much all the time. Like, you really need to make sure that when you go into that organization, you're taking a step back, understanding the history of the organization, what's been successful, what hasn't been successful, where is the organization now, what are the crucial areas to be focused on, what needs your attention, what doesn't need your attention, things like that. So that's number 4. Number 5 is that you come in thinking that you have the answer. So you're the answer man, you're the answer woman, you have all the answers to what's ailing the organization. You come in with your mind made up already. You've already jumped to your own conclusions without doing adequate research, without talking to peers, without talking to people above you, with talking to people below you, people outside the organization. And you've quickly diagnosed the problem, and you quickly developed a solution. And so again, those things, again, you'll see some of the common themes, and these are like rushing and doing a lot. But with this one, sometimes there's more than just one answer to a problem. Sometimes there's multiple answers to the problem. And I think you need to make sure that you understand that just because you're being brought into this role doesn't mean you're the one who has the answer. You might need to go and find the answer before you have the answer. You might come in thinking you know the answer or have an idea what the answer might be, but you need to make sure that you're not going in thinking, oh, this is definitely the answer, and ignoring all the other signs around you as to what the answer could possibly potentially be. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4. 5. It's important when you start a new role that you spend some time learning in your job. You need to learn about the organization. You need to learn about the people, both peers and above and below you. You need to learn what has been happening in the past, what the company wants to do in the future. You need to work on all of those things and learn those things, but you want to make sure that you're not learning the wrong things. And so sometimes you are going to come into a new role and your learning needs to be technical in nature, right? So you want to be learning technical stuff. But sometimes you're going to go into organization, your learning needs to be cultural and political, because your role is going to be more of a consensus, someone who's driving consensus, building consensus, and you need to understand the people better, the culture better, all the political things that happen in organization. You don't want to spend all your time learning technical things when you should be learning cultural and political things, because that's going to get you way off on going down the wrong path, right? And I would say that was something also going back to my role as a CEO in that organization was I spent too much time trying to learn historical things about the organization and about the community, and I need to be spending more time learning the political leanings of the different people I was involved in, the board that I reported to, the different power players in the community. I should have spent more time learning that. I took way too long to try to learn that, and by that point it was too late, honestly. I had that window of learning was just over, and I did learn it, but then I'm learning it the hard way, the way that doesn't help. So then when you do it that way, you have a lot harder time building consensus and building trust in a role like that. So you want to make sure that whatever learning you're doing, the learning you're doing is the correct learning. If it's technical, be technical. If it's political or cultural, make sure it's political or cultural. And you want to make sure you know which one it is before you just make assumptions about that. Okay, last but not least on this items of failure and transition is neglecting your horizontal relationships. A lot of times when you come into an organization or you get promoted in an organization, you want to focus on your relationship with your boss or your bosses or the people that report to you. Sometimes that tends to be where we want to focus our time and attention, is the vertical relationships, and we neglect our peer relationships, those people that are at our same level, those people that maybe we work with or that aren't in our department. Like, it's important that you need to build upwards and outwards, and you can't neglect either one. And so you want to make sure that you spend a lot of time building those relationships horizontally, because it's those horizontal relationships that are really going to help you succeed, because it's going to be those horizontal relationships that you're going to need to help build consensus. Because you can build consensus down because people are going to agree with you that report to you for the most part, not all the time. And you'll build consensus up naturally, but it's that horizontal consensus you need to work on. So those are some of the real common areas that I see that people fail in their first 90 days. So you want to make sure that if you're in that period, if you're currently starting a new role, you're going to be starting a new role, make sure that you're thinking through those things and you haven't fallen into those in any of those traps. If you have, it's not too late to correct your course and undo those things and refocus on the areas you need to refocus on. But make sure that you are doing those things, right? The other thing I would mention too here is that it's never too late to start your 90-day plan. So maybe you've even been in your role for 2 years, and let's be honest, maybe it's not going as great as you want it to be. It's never too late to take a step back and be like, hey, look, I need to take a step back and reevaluate. And, I actually had a client who went through a transition. Obviously, I didn't work with her on her 90-day plan. She didn't have a 90-day plan when she started, but she was, she was 2 or 3 years into a product manager role, and she had come to me because she was actually under a PIP plan, a performance improvement plan. And it wasn't looking good. And so she came to me, and so we took a step back and said, hey, I know you've been there for almost 3 years or whatever the case may be, but let's step back and let's do a 90-day plan. I think it actually was a 60-day plan, because I think she only had 60 days to turn things around on her PIP. And so that's what we did. We developed a 60-day plan. And at the end of that 60-day plan, her PIP was removed. She was still on some sort of 6-month probationary period, but she was well on her way. So no matter how long you've been at an organization, if things aren't going well, or things had been going well and they're not going so well now, like, take a step back. You can develop a 90-day plan at any point. And I'd be happy to help you develop a 90-day plan if you're interested. So if you want to learn more about how to develop a 90-day plan, how to avoid some of the traps that people can fall into transition, you're more than welcome to reach out to me and set up a free 45-minute career coaching session. You can ask me whatever questions you want about career transition, career planning, job search, whatever the case may be. It is 100% free, no strings attached. It's not going to be a salesy conversation. Just going to be you and I talking over Zoom about what your career goals are or how to develop a 90-day plan. So I hope this was helpful. Please let me know in the comments. Until next time, talk to you soon. Bye.